Firelight Adventures, The Foxfire Cave, Summer 2026, Week 4, The Hour-Long Adventure. The lowest tide in 7 years arrived on a Wednesday at 4:58 a.m. The Forever crew was already waiting. 4 kayaks, 4 headlamps, 1 glowing lighthouse lantern swinging from Alex's bow, and the little sea fox bell clanging softly with every paddle stroke. They had told their parents they were doing an all-day beach cleanup and picnic. Technically true, they just left out the part about the hidden cave that only opened once every 7 years. Black Rock Island looked different at dawn, taller, darker, and somehow friendly, like it had been expecting them. They beached the kayaks in the same spot they had 2 summers ago and followed the new waterproof map toward the fox silhouette. A narrow crack in the cliff that hadn't been there before now gaped wide enough for kids to slip through sideways. Emma went first because she was smallest and refused to let anyone else test the squeeze. Chris followed with the rope coil, then Barrett with the big waterproof flashlight, and finally Alex, bringing the lantern that never seemed to run out of oil. Inside, the cave breathed cool, salty air. Their lights revealed walls covered in glowing green dots. Foxfire, the kind of fungus that lights up caves like constellations. 50 steps in, the passage opened into a huge cathedral chamber. The tide had left the floor perfectly dry, and in the center waited something impossible. A complete pirate sloop, 35 feet long, perfectly preserved under a natural stone roof for who knows how many centuries. The name on her bow, still bright, read Foxfire. Chris actually forgot how to speak for 5 whole seconds. The deck was spotless. Lanterns hung ready. Sails were furled but clean. It was as if 4 ghost kids had just stepped off for lunch and never came back. Barrett found the first clue nailed to the mast, a brass plaque. To the crew who found the tide door, welcome home. We are Silas, 13, Ruth, 11, Finn, 11, and Peg, 15. Different years, same summer hearts. This ship is yours for 1 day only. When tonight's tide rises, the cave seals again for 7 more years. Sail her, explore every corner, take what you need, leave what the next crew will need. The ocean is big, and the stories never end. Fair winds, the original Foxfire crew, will be watching from the rail. Emma read it aloud twice because her voice was shaking with excitement. Luz looked at the others. 1 day. That's at least 12 hours before the water comes back in. We sail. They spent the next hour just exploring the ship like it was Christmas morning. The captain's cabin held a working ship's wheel that turned smoothly, and a logbook open to a blank page waiting for new entries. Below deck, hammocks still swayed gently, each one labeled with a carved name. Silas, Ruth, Finn, Peg, and 4 blank ones someone had added recently. The galley had a crate of never-rotting oranges and a note that said, "Eat up, growing pirates need vitamin C." In the hold, they found 4 perfect, child-sized oilskin coats hanging on pegs like they'd been waiting for new owners. At 7 a.m., they cast off the mossy lines that held the Foxfire to the cave floor. A hidden channel, lit from below by more Foxfire, led straight out to open water. The sloop slid forward as if she'd never been asleep. For the next 10 hours, they lived the most perfect pirate day in history. They sailed her in big circles while Chris stood at the bow, yelling, "I'm king of the world!" until he fell overboard and had to be fished out. Took turns at the wheel while Emma steered them through narrow passages between rocks that no modern boat could fit. Found a sealed crate marked "Open when ready" that contained 4 real but dull-edged cutlasses, a spyglass that showed tomorrow's weather, and a music box that played sea shanties when wound. 8 oranges on the deck while Barrett read aloud from the old logbook, stories of the original crew chasing storms, rescuing sailors, and hiding from Navy ships. Discovered a locked captain's sea chest that only opened when all 4 of them turned a key at the exact same moment. Inside was the single coolest thing yet, a glowing stone the size of a softball, warm to the touch, carved with a fox head. A note underneath read, "The Foxfire Heart, one wish for the crew that keeps sailing together. Use it only when you really, truly need it. It will work once, then it becomes ordinary stone forever." They stared at it for a long time. Chris whispered, "We could wish for $1 million. Or for summer to never end," Emma added. Barrett shook his head slowly. "We save it, for when someone really needs saving." Alex closed the chest. Agreed. We lock it back up and tell no one. They spent the afternoon racing seagulls, practicing knot tying with the old ropes, and taking 1,000 photos with Barrett's waterproof camera. At 4 p.m., they dropped anchor in a hidden cove and jumped overboard for the best swim of their lives, the Foxfire floating above them like a guardian. As the sun started to sink, they sailed her home. At 6:47 p.m., the tide began whispering at the cave mouth. They guided the beautiful ship back to her stone cradle, tied her lines exactly as they'd found them, and stood on the deck one last time. They left more than they took. 4 new oilskin coats hung on the blank pegs, each embroidered on the inside with their names. Their latest crew photo tucked into the logbook on today's date. A bag of modern snacks for growing pirates in 2033. The 4 enamel compass roses from the Sea Fox now hung from the ship's wheel, so the next crew would know they'd been there. And a long letter in the logbook that took all 4 of them 20 minutes to write together. When they stepped off the Foxfire for the last time, the cave opening was already shrinking. By the time they squeezed back through the crack with their backpacks full of memories and oranges, the cliff looked solid again. They paddled home in silence at first, too full of the day to speak. The little lighthouse lantern and the Sea Fox bell led them safely through the dusk. That night, in the tree fort, they didn't even try to sleep for hours. They just lay on their backs and stared at the treasures hanging from the rafters. Peg's locket, Finn's lantern, the Sea Fox bell, 4 compass roses that always pointed to each other, and in a small... They just lay on their backs and stared at the treasures hanging from the rafters. Peg's locket, Finn's lantern, the Sea Fox bell, 4 compass roses that always pointed to each other, and in a small locked box under Alex's sleeping bag, the Foxfire heart, warm and waiting. Chris finally broke the silence. Next Wednesday, the tide chart says there's a sandbar that only appears at midnight. Barrett grinned in the dark. I already found the next letter hidden in the Foxfire's galley drawer. Emma laughed, soft and happy. Week 5 loading. Alex reached out and turned the lantern down until only a tiny flame danced. Same summer, he said. Every week until the last day. 4 voices answered together, quiet and fierce. Forever crew. Far away, deep inside Black Rook Island, the Foxfire rocked gently in her cave, sails ready, waiting for the next 7-year tide. And on her deck, 4 new oilskin coats fluttered in a breeze that hadn't blown for centuries, smelling like salt and tomorrow. Good night, crew. The stone is warm, the tide is listening, and week 5 starts in 6 sleeps.